Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Soren, and I am the Senior Social Movement Specialist at ActionAid Denmark, and currently also acting coordinator for our Palestine campaign. Today's event is part of a series of global webinars hosted by MOVE, the Global Social Movement Center, which is a collaboration between ActionAid Nigeria, TCDC, our training center in Tanzania, ActionAid Denmark, ActionAid Association India, and the Global Platform in El Salvador. As a global social movement center, we seek to be a connector and enabler for human rights defenders and their movements to be supported throughout their journey to political wins. And this includes on and offline trainings, both for activists and organizations who want to be better allies at supporting movements. It includes mentorships and exchange programs and longer-term strategic partnership with movements. But it also includes direct funding support to movements and activists, direct action grants with partners such as Beautiful Trouble and Africans Rising, Climate Action Network, and many others, and rapid response mechanism. And it includes action research, regional and global convenings, and webinars such as this one. And these webinars are aimed at bringing together people, movements, and allies to learn and discuss topics and challenges relevant across geographies. But it's also an opportunity for us to stand in solidarity with each other across movements, revolutionary cultures, and time zones. And you can find more info on MOVE, the Global Social Movement Center, and the various offerings in the links that will be provided in the chat. So enough said about us. Just again, a warm welcome to all of you for joining us today. And today we are here as the humanitarian political catastrophe in Palestine is unfolding in front of our eyes. I don't think we need to run the numbers for you. You know them as they increase on a daily and hourly basis. But it's not just numbers, it's names, it's families, and it's a whole people. Many of you joining today as speakers and audience is directly impacted, and still you fight. I think I can speak on behalf of all of us that demands our deepest respect and our immediate and prolonged solidarity. So please bear that in mind in your chats and in your responses to be respectful with each other in this very trying time. Today we're also here with hope as part of the mass global movement for ceasefire. In just a few short months, we've mobilized ourselves across nations, uniting our voices in a shared demand for justice and peace. And today we have with us 7 individuals from across the world who offer insights into how mobilization has occurred within their unique contexts. And together we will explore the catalyst behind the historic movement and strategies for continued solidarity and action. There will be opportunities to engage along the way in the chat, so please do put questions and comments in, and we'll try our best to juggle it and pick it up along the way. And so to take us through this important webinar, let me introduce our moderator for today, Reem Manar. Reem is the Director of Campaign and Coaching at ActionAid, a Jordan-based organization that supports those pursuing change in the Arab world in organizing their power and leadership to achieve justice in their causes. So Reem, over to you. The room is yours. And again, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Soren, and welcome everyone. Thank you, ActionAid Denmark, for always organizing global learning exchange spaces like this. After the 7th of October, it became clear that what happened was not isolated from the 17 years siege on Gaza and the 75 years of occupation of Palestine. And it became evident that the occupation itself is the problem. But I truly believe that we are experiencing a historic moment of strength and global solidarity for the liberation of the people of Palestine. I'm really honored, truly honored, to be surrounded by organizers and troublemakers from all around the world who, for more than 4 months now, have been fighting in creative ways to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. Can't wait to start the conversation with our wonderful panelists. But before we dive in, let me quickly share the story that brought me here today. So I am Palestinian. My father was expelled from his homeland. This meant that we were moving from one country to another for as long as I remember. I remember vividly the moment of navigating through airports. As a child, I would see people ahead of me at the passport checkpoints passing smoothly, while when it was our turn, we would either have to turn to where we came from or sleep at the airport for days. When I asked my mother why this is happening to us, she would say, it's because we are Palestinians. Honestly, I didn't fully grasp the answer at that time, but these moments of being apart from our relatives, living in fear of future, shaped me into a person who stands against oppression and discrimination in general. Currently, as Soren said, I work as a community organizing coach through AHL organization. And our mission is to ensure that the community in the Arab region realizes and uses its people power through collaborative, organized leadership to achieve justice and change. I'll be facilitating the discussion with 7 activists from different countries around the world who have led important movements to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. Among them are those specialized in legal aspects, while others focus on organizing movements and campaigns. I invite you to join me in welcoming each one of them in the chat. And I ask each panelist to maybe raise a hand when you hear your name. Quickly, let me first give you an idea about the agenda for today. So we will start with the context for 20 minutes, around 20 minutes. We will hear about how the movement emerged in their countries. And secondly, we will go to sustainability, how they sustained their work and organizing from the beginning of the war on Gaza till now. And thirdly, the tactics. What tactics did they lead, and what advice and lessons can they share with us here today? And we also will hear more about the legal and political response to the different mobilization efforts. So let's introduce to you our panelists. Liam Takura, you are a Zimbabwean human rights activist based in Zambia and intellectual and social movement specialist. You are also leading the Palestine Solidarity Movement in Zimbabwe. Athena Kariati. She's an organizer based in Cyprus and a key member of United for Palestine. It's a grassroots movement that emerged in Cyprus in October and advocating across the country. She's also a member of the new Internationalist Left, which is a political organization in Cyprus. Haneen Siam, you are a Palestinian organizer hailing from Gaza and living in Japan. She stands as a driving force behind the organization and leadership of the Palestine movement in Japan. Vili Nawa is a lawyer and political activist from Zambia. He's a co-founder of Youth for Parliament and a grassroots organizer in Zambia's solidarity and protest movements. Nawa is committed to reshaping the future through frontline activism. Welcome, Nawa. And Sonia Knox is the communications director at Jewish Voice for Peace. the largest progressive Jewish anti-Zionist organization in the world. It organizes grassroots, cross-class, and intergenerational movements of the US Jews into solidarity with Palestinian freedom struggle. Layla Katarman is the monitor team manager at European Legal Support Center, which defends and empower advocates of Palestine rights across Europe and United Kingdom through legal means. Layla is based in the Netherlands. And lastly, Fiona Shekron. You are an anti-colonial feminist activist and the coordinator for the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, BDS National Committee, coordinating the movement's campaigns in Europe, working towards deconstructing a system of deep-seated complicity with the Israeli regime and anti-Palestinian racism. Welcome all. Just to remind everyone that we will have rounds of questions for the panelists, and you will have the opportunity to ask questions and comment in the chat. So this is a learning space, and your interaction through chat will enrich each other. Don't hesitate to summarize what came to your mind from the discussion. Okay, we will start with let me check the time. Okay. We will start with the first topic, the context, with Haneen. Haneen, you were born in Gaza, as I said, but moved to Japan as a young in a young age. I know you have relatives there. I really hope they remain safe. Japan's policy, Haneen, most often aligned with American position in the current situation. So in this context, how did the Palestine movement in Japan emerge? And what were maybe the milestones through the journey?
Thank you so much, Reem. And thank you everybody who's with us here today. As you said, Reem, Japan has a very unique stance, let's say. They do follow the US and US politics very heavily and are very heavily influenced by it. But at the same time, they like to maintain a sort of neutral stance as much as they can. And at first, I know after October 7th, I attended a protest, and it was quite small. Not many people attended, not many people knew where to find information about Palestine and about protests in Japan, specifically in Japanese. So that was kind of an obstacle at first. But then, through these protests, a lot of people were able to connect and create a community. So it was more grassroots initiatives and a combination with social media activism. And over time, that grew, and more people started attending protests and connecting, and also using their individual skills. So they're not just participants who attend protests. They go the extra mile by using their skill sets to, organize and to mobilize and to advocate. So that's a big thing that allowed the movement to grow in Japan. And allowed for more people to engage online and in community events. So the movement, really took off as individuals connected and shared information between each other. And then, through organizing and mobilizing together, we were able to, reach more people, create more organizations that are going to be advocating for Palestine. There weren't organizations advocating for Palestine. I mean, there's general organizations advocating for human rights, but in terms of Palestine, there weren't. And that kind of developed very quickly. And, we created these new groups like Palestinians of Japan, some other Culture Against Apartheid, there's other organizations. And through that, we were able to really mobilize, quite quickly. And yeah, the social media aspect as well played a huge role. especially because it was hard to find information at first. But now if you search on any social media platform, you'll be able to see a lot of information in Japanese as well. And, you know, the movement kind of lacked a formal structure at first, but over time, we're getting more organized, we're learning, you know, a lot of us are amateurs, let's say, so we're learning as we go and we're mobilizing as, you know, as we go. And at first there were no organizations. Our latest protest, we had over 30 organizations who were supporting the cause and supporting the demonstration. So, you know, things really picked up quite fast. But yeah, I would really, you know, I would really draw everything back to grassroots initiatives and the social media activism and just collaborative efforts between people. That's really what drove the movement here. And you never see a protest with thousands of people in Japan. It's quite rare, but we were able to achieve 3,000, 4,000 people at protests a few times now. So, you know, things are going well, which is great.
Great. So it's like that. And now you are building a new movement, a Palestinian movement from other coalitions that was existed before. Do you have, can you tell us more about the structure? Do you have now like a core team who organize everything, or how does
so
it
now
go?
we have a core team.
1 minute, if you can.
Yeah, we now have a core team and we, you know, do all the organizing, but of course we encourage people to join us and to use their skills to also, you know, create their own actions, and we support that and we back that. So we're about, like, I would say maybe 15 people in the core team, but we have so many people who are helping and supporting with their own skills. So now it's become a huge, you know, collective effort.
Thank you, Haneen. This is impressive.
Of course.
I'll go to Nawa. Nawa, Zambia has a long history of struggle against colonialism, and therefore there is a shared historical connection between you and Palestinian people. Can you share with us how the mobilization for a ceasefire in Zambia started, and maybe what is the role of Zambia's solidarity and protest movement in mobilizing for ceasefire in Zambia?
Yes, so maybe to just give a bit of context, so Zambia has always taken a position that supports Palestine. In 1964, when we gained independence, at the time that we were gaining independence, Zambia's position was they were siding with Israel. But then after we gained independence, the president of the country at that time decided that we needed to side with Palestine. So from that time, we've been siding with Palestine all this time until recently, when we were infested in debt, and then the current president or the current administration that we have went to the American government to seek for support in terms of debt distress. And then at that moment, we became non-aligned, but we all knew that our alignment was obviously with Israel. So when the events happened in October, and then there was the attacks on Gaza, we were talking about it in isolation as individuals. At that time, we were only a few of us that were speaking about the issue of Palestine, maybe just 10 to 15 people within our circles. And then we did not know that there were others that were interested in the cause. So we wanted to organize a sit-in meeting with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we wrote to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just as individuals, a group of individuals, to ask them that we sit down with them and talk to them about the position that we're going to have over the issue of Palestine. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs did not grant us audience. And then two to 3 days later, in a UN resolution vote on the 27th of October, they decided to abstain from voting, which is basically voting against the resolution to a ceasefire. So that was a slap in our face. We wrote back to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs asking them that we needed to still meet. They didn't respond to us. So we decided that we were going to engage in some ground action. And we're going to use that ground action as an opportunity for us to mobilize and begin to organize ourselves as a movement. So we reached out to the Palestinian embassy in Zambia. It would also be interesting to note that there's no Israeli embassy in Zambia. We only have a consular office, but we do have a Palestinian embassy. So we reached out to the Palestinian embassy and indicated to them that we wanted to take out this action, and we were asking for their support. So they did not give us any feedback. There was silence from their end as well. Then we decided to go ahead and conduct a street protest. So we wrote to the police to seek for permit to conduct a protest, but then government said that you couldn't conduct a protest because we were non-aligned, and conducting a pro-Palestinian protest would mean that we were placing Zambia in a position where they would be compromised. So we were stuck, and then the embassy wrote back to us and said that if you can't find a venue to conduct a protest, we've got diplomatic immunity, come and use our space. So we started advertising the program, telling people about the protest, telling people to show up, telling people to come through for the protest. The numbers that we're receiving on Facebook, on social media, in terms of mobilizing were quite low. There was only like 23 likes, 10 people signing up. We actually organized the bus, a 27-seater bus, because we didn't expect any numbers more than 27 on the day of the protest, which was on the 11th of November at the Palestinian embassy. So even at the embassy, when they asked how many seats they should organize, so they organized seats. So it was going to be a sit-in protest where we're going to be sitting, and there was going to be a conversation. We're expecting 27 people. So around, the protest was supposed to start at 5 in the afternoon. Around 4 in the afternoon, one of our colleagues proceeded to go to the embassy earlier. And then when they were there, they gave us a call and said, colleagues, you are late. The place is full. There's no space.
Oh.
So we're wondering where are the people coming from? So then we went to the embassy as well. And when we got to the embassy, there was literally no space inside the embassy for people to enter. So even some of us that were supposed to speak, that were supposed to be in the front, couldn't even get to access the front because it was packed, it was full. People showed up. We had over 3,000 people showing up for that particular protest. And then the beautiful thing about it is that because the embassy yard was full, we had other people also going outside. So we still ended up having a street protest because there were other people that were outside. Then when we managed to get through to the embassy, we started the program. And then what was funny was that the sound system that we had wasn't even sufficient for the people that showed up. So the people that were outside were having their own program. The people that were inside were having their own program. And then that's how we started talking about it. It was a very big action. It hit the news. People were talking about it. And then at that very particular protest, we even announced that we were now going to be formalizing the solidarity movement, which was particularly formed to offer solidarity to the people of Palestine. And then at that very moment, people started signing up. We started getting people registering, joining the movement. And then after that day, the next time that a resolution was held in the UN Council, Zambia actually decided to vote for a ceasefire. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs wrote back to us and told us to say, you guys should have been patient. Look, we have done this. We don't expect you to go on the street again. So from that time, we've continued to hold different programs, especially on information and narrative changing, because a lot of people don't know that we have this history that we share with Palestine. And it is good for us to begin to hold some of these programs in universities where we train and teach about Palestine. On the International Day of Solidarity with Palestine, we actually hoisted the flag, which is against the Zambian law because you're not allowed to hoist a flag of a different nation, but we managed to hoist the flag of Palestine and painted a few murals here and there without any repercussions. So that's basically the context in terms of the Palestine.
Now, just quickly, 30 minutes maybe. So after 30 seconds, sorry. After forming that team, do you have the strategy evolved? Do you have a strategy now that is evolving to continue the tactics in a strategic way?
Yes. So we now have mobilized ourselves. Liam, who's also part of the speakers, is actually our convener. I am only serving as an organizer in the movement. We've formalized and set up a structure, a temporal structure. But our strategy is three-prong. The first one is one that is involved in grassroots action. So these are protests, street march, driving in the streets with the flag, and so on and so forth. And Thompson is the one that's leading that aspect of the prong of the approach. The second one is basically on raising education on the Palestinian-Israel conflict, So we're doing this in universities as well as in communities, so that we can mobilize as many people as we can to join the movement. And this is also being done by another comrade of ours. And then the third approach is where we've continued diplomatic engagement with the ministry and with government to ensure that whenever there's a vote that's coming in, they're taking the side of Palestine. But also now that there's this situation going on with the US trying to impose sanctions on South Africa, we expect that the government is going to be a bit more scared now. So we're trying to see if we can also scare them into taking their stance and sticking by their stance.
Thank you, Noah. Let me jump in and bring Sonia from Jewish Voice for Peace into this discussion. Sonia, we have witnessed the significant tactics that the movement you are organizing so many significant tactics to demand ceasefire. Tell us more about the movement, how it structured itself to be able to mobilize its community. And also, I am eager to know, since the movement started 25 years ago, what is the major difference or change in the way you organize your activism in such crucial situation after October 7? You have 5 minutes, Sonia.
Great. Thank you so much, Reem. Thank you, everyone. This is such a fantastic panel. So Jewish Voice for Peace is a national grassroots member-led organization based in the United States. And we are proud and grateful to be part of the Palestine-led Freedom for Palestine Liberation and Movement that's based in the US as well. So within this much, much larger convening and organizing space that spans the entire US, Jewish Voice for Peace functions to reach out and move and represent the vast diversity in American Jewish opinion. We're perpetually presented as having no voice or merely supporting whatever the government of Israel does, or therefore our government in support of that. It's all allegedly done in our safety. And we know all of this is utter garbage. And so Jewish Voice for Peace, as an anti-Zionist Jewish organization, functions specifically in this much larger Palestine movement to really reach out and educate American Jews. And one of the ways that we do that has, especially in the moment that we're in now, the time that we're in now, is by basically organizing protests where the idea is everybody has a role to play, everybody can do something, everybody is needed. So sometimes we have mass protests. We took over an entire building of Congress in early October, and we brought our rabbis, and we snuck people in through different doors, and we had the media go underground through the cafeteria and, pulled out banners, and all of the staffers in Congress were like, what is going on? And the members of Congress were rushing to see what was happening, because we knew that that the US government is the major enabler and a fourth accomplice to what the government of Israel and the military is doing in Gaza. We're sending them weapons, we're sending them money, and we have been, and we're going to. And so we needed to take the argument immediately to the center of power. But at the same time, as we were doing that, all across the country, our various, it's a membership organization, right? So there are chapters, and some of them are in large cities, and some of them are in really small locations where you can get 5-10 people together. But we've been sending them talking points and encouragement, and they've been going out to the congressional local offices of their local representatives. So they're going to their people, to the offices, and they're going every week. In Western Massachusetts, which is a tiny state, they've been out there 50 times. Every week they go out and they demand to speak with their senator or their representative, and they demand to have their call for a ceasefire be heard. So it's a diversity of tactics at all times, with the idea that if you are somebody who wants to take a giant risk and scale a bridge and help us do a giant banner drop, we've got a place for you. If you are somebody who wants to who needs to stay at home and wants to be active, we have letters to the editor you can write. We have demands you can build. If you can't leave your location, then you can go to your local representative. You can try to pass a ceasefire bill in your local state legislature. There are over, I think, 50 cities in the US that have ceasefire resolutions now. So there's a million different ways to get involved, but the idea is that we have to stay involved, right? That the only way we're ever going to see the United States government stop and allowing this genocide to happen is when all of the powers that be hear from us consistently day after day after day. And in my last minute, I'll just add how this all changed. We've been around, again, for 25 years. We've been building, we do educational programs, political education. We had curriculums on what the Nakba was and is, or what it means to be anti-Zionist, and what is Zionism, what is anti-Zionism, et cetera. So a lot of political education. But after October 7th, it was clear to all of us, right, that the response from the Israeli military was going to be horrific. And we leapt into organizing, and it was just get out on the streets, get out, here are the targets, here, here's the ways to reach government, here's the ways to reach your local electeds, get out, make your voice heard. And at the same time, always see who is organizing in your community from the Palestine movement. Join them, bring your flags, show that you're Jewish, wear your shirts that say not in our name, stand up with your Palestinian siblings and be loud.
Great. Can you tell us more in 1 minute about maybe the structure, how you are organizing, the behind scenes about organizing all this stuff you mentioned, and the narrative, the tactics?
Sure. We are member supported. Our members pay dues, and with that money, we have paid staff, which is somewhat unique in the ecosystem, and we are very lucky for that. And then we have chapters and pods all across the country. The member leader, they self-organize and sign a charter with us so that we're all in alignment because we're part of the progressive left. So there's no space if you're going to be homophobic or something like that. And then we hold convenings where we do like education and training and skilling up. We also have regular calls. We just had our mass member call last night. We had 1,500 people on a Zoom and a YouTube to continually get the education and information out. We're organizing on Signal now, as I'm sure we'll hear later, because of all of the repression that all of our movements are facing. We have a lot of Signal chats right now, but we have local organizers, we have national organizers, we have a whole comms department that handles social media. Yeah, we ask a lot from our members. If you're going to be representing Jewish Voice for Peace and wearing our shirts, when there's so much attempt to paint all American Jews as supporting Israel and opposing the state of Israel as being anti-Semitic, we have to be extra careful in what we say. And so we ask our people to, we put out talking points and messaging, and we ask our people to really hold to it. And I think we've seen a lot of success in changing the narrative, and the vast majority of Americans all support a ceasefire. 80% of Democrats support a ceasefire. 50% of American Jews support a ceasefire. We haven't made our government change yet, but we're getting there.
We're getting there, yeah. Thank you, Sonia. So what I have gathered from our discussion is how activists have bravely shouldered responsibility despite uncertainty and fear. They mobilized and led significant tactics. Many movements have taken the time to review and enhance their strategies also. And I feel while our ultimate wish is for a ceasefire in Gaza now, the journey toward the goal holds important successes. It's like we are building blocks for stronger communities worldwide to achieve justice. Maybe the Palestinian cause is one of these examples, but your work paves the way for progress in countless other causes in future. Let's move to our second topic with Fiona and talk maybe about the sustainability of the movements. Fiona, you are the EU coordinator for the Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions BDS campaign. The movement was launched 18 or 19 years ago and has a clear strategy. It also achieved many successes. But after October 7, the idea of boycotting Israel as a theory of change is at its peak. as a way to confront the occupation. Can you elaborate more on how the war in Gaza affected the BDS strategy, growth, and expansion in Europe? You also have 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll try to stick to that. Thank you so much for the invitation and for everyone to be here today, and for the incredible panelists here as well. So yeah, definitely, as you said, it has been more than 18 years that the BDS call has been launched by the great majority of the Palestinian society, representing the whole segment of the society, whatever it's Palestinians in occupied territory, Palestinian in exile, and part of the refugees, and the Palestinian in 48. And so the BDS movement has grown through the years, but definitely we can see a big change after October, because I think we're all conscious, and you have said it, what happened on 7th of October was not coming from a vacuum. It has been 75 years of ethnic cleansing, of apartheid, of settler colonialism, and we know very well that to end all form of violence, whatever it's the violence of the oppressor and the violent response of the oppressed, you need to end oppression, you need to dismantle oppression. And it has been the message of the BDS movement from the very beginning, and the Palestinian people for decades and decades, of course. And so in order to dismantle this oppression, it's all about ending complicity, and in the different intervention and speech, and exactly what Sonia has said for the US, it's about really ending complicity of states, of institution, of corporation with the system of oppression of Israel against the indigenous Palestinian people. And so very, very fast after, in October, big, massive march and mobilization occurred all around the world, with the strong message to boycott and divest from apartheid, to call for sanction. And so very quickly you had lots of call to boycotts that were either targets of the BDS movement directly, like it's the case for Chevron, it's the case for AXA, Carrefour, and all these corporates that are involved in the system of oppression, but also organic boycott, like the boycott of McDonald's, for example. And so you're seeing, you can see that a big brand and big corporation like McDonald's, like Pizza Hut, for example, are explaining and showing that the boycott is basically having an impact on the finance and on their economy, and that's a proof that the boycott is working. That's a proof that indeed we with the people power we can reach the point to pressure the corporates, even though if they sound massive, like McDonald's, for example. And it has just, the BDS movement has been, I think, more known among the mainstream, around the public, and the strategy of the BDS movement as well, because there is list with thousands of names of corporation to boycott, and of course, lots of people are like full of rage, frustration, sadness, and want to do something and want to boycott everything. But the BDS movement strategy, and it's inspired by also the struggle against the apartheid South Africa and other anti-colonial struggle. But it's really like to target a small amount of companies to have a greater impact, in order to put all the energy on not small corporation, but on different, on a small amount of targets, in order to really have an impact on the complicity of these companies. And I'm sure we can, for example, hear about later on Hanin, that will explain the amazing work that have been done in Japan against Itochu, and that is an amazing example of how corporation is basically ending complicity with the military apparatus of Israel with the end of the contract with Elbit system. And it has been the case with pension funds that have been withdrawing the money from Israeli bonds. It has been the case of several companies that are like now exploring and feeling the heat of the call to boycott and divestments. And in terms of sanction as well, I think the military embargo call has been a call for decades against Israel. But now more than ever, it's so important to have a comprehensive military embargo on Israel, and it's really, we have huge campaigns in the Spanish state or in Belgium. It's literally the campaign pressuring the states and the institution to apply a military embargo. So yeah, I would say that in general, and we'll end here. It's just the BDS movement has been growing exponentially. New groups, new partners everywhere, new trade unions supporting, and the call and the core message of the BDS movement is more known, and I would say is taking the streets, and that's so important because that's the objective.
Yeah, and it's so powerful that in the BDS, each one of us feel that he or she can contribute to the Palestinian cause. Everyone can boycott something if it's strategic, and they want to boycott a specific company or something. But also I wanted to ask you quickly in 1 minute, how you maintain the managing all these numbers of activists and teams all around Europe. Tell us more about it.
So the thing is that the BDS call has been launched in 2005, and quickly after the BDS National Committee, which is the Palestinian BNC leading the BDS movement globally, has been formed. And so we are several to work as regional coordinators. We have a comms team, a communication teams as well. And inside the BNC, I mean, you have different aspects in the structure. You have a General Assembly where you have all the representative of the organization, trade unions, popular committees that have launched the call in 2005. And then you have different general secretariats that are just being able to strategize and implement the call from Palestine globally. And per region, we have mailing lists, and we have we have meetings every month. I'm having lots of contact with groups and partners in order to just maintain the connection and enforce the strategies and answer to the question of the different partners. We have been sending policy brief. We have been trying to build guides for messaging, for being able to deliver the good messaging, to be able to deliver the good, to implement the good strategies. And I think Sonia has also stated very well, we are attacked for the last 18 years. And so we need to be very straightforward about what is the right messaging of the BDS movement, and be sure that that we continue to be proactive instead of defending ourselves and spending time to defend ourselves too much. So that's the kind of things that we have been doing. And I think I would just end here in saying the mobilization is still ongoing and has been unprecedented during these last 4 months. It's incredible to see the energy and the people's power taking the street, doing disruptive actions every week all around the globe, all around Europe in my case. And it has been tiring for sure. And the most important, that's is necessary to maintain and sustain the groups, the partners, the organization. It's really to being able to form the new people coming. It's being able to educate. It's being able to not be alone or not be 1, 2, 3 person, but being like really just sustain the capacities in order that when someone needs to rest, someone else can take it, to have the necessary time to deal with all these emotions, to deal with all this energy, and come back when it's recharged. And yeah, I think it's just being able to continue to organize collective hope for freedom and justice, and all those responsible and complicit in Israel genocide on Gaza, on Palestinian in Gaza.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiona. Let's bring Athena in. Athena, United for Palestine emerged in Cyprus in October, but since then the war took a long time with many setbacks. Despite this, you continued the work. So what is the secret here behind your movement's sustainability?
The secret. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very proud to be part of this panel, and thank you very much for the rest of the speakers. The United for Palestine was developed in Cyprus during and after the first demonstrations that were called from the organized forces, from the left political parties, from leftist football fan clubs, etc., which would do a protest for Palestine either way. And the truth is that they were quite late to organize, because in Cyprus, even though the Republic of Cyprus, we're talking about the Republic of Cyprus, so the southern part of Cyprus, even though the Republic of Cyprus was always in one way or another in solidarity with Palestine, even if they were right-wing governments in power. These have changed since 2011, and the actual reason is the discovery and the decision for exploitation of the natural gas reserves in the Eastern Mediterranean. Because of that, the government has shifted. It has become pro-Israeli. Netanyahu has visited multiple times in Cyprus, and there is a series of agreements that were signed between the Republic of Cyprus and Israel, whether it's military trade agreements, etc. And in reality, now, 13 years after the first signing of the first agreement, we see that the economy of Cyprus is being more and more interconnected with the Israeli capital and the Israeli interests. So the left forces and generally the Palestinian community itself, which is getting smaller because it was comprised mainly by refugees that through the migration policy of Europe generally has a tendency of sending refugees back to Asia, Africa, wherever they can send them. The Palestinian community was also quite small, and therefore the reaction to the 7th of October came quite late, but it was big, because the Cypriot population is in solidarity with Palestine, feels the solidarity with Palestine, is a population that knows what it means to be has recent memories of war. In 1974, we had the coup of Greece, of the Greek government, and the invasion of Turkey, the war and the continuous occupation. Therefore, the population has very recent memories of that, and a lot of sympathy to the Palestinian people. And this is what we wanted to remind, let's say, so to the population. So we were a couple of people with leafleting during the protests, and we used very traditional tools, let's say. We were leafleting the streets, we put posters on the walls, and we try to collect the ones and twos that would be interested in the beginning. We did that in 3 languages, Greek, English, Turkish, and also Arabic, so that we can have the participation of the Arabic population in Cyprus. And so we started with weekly meetings of 5-10 people, and that was organizational meetings. And now we have a chat group that counts more than 50 people. And we have a periphery of people that came at least one time in one of our meetings and has organized as well. We have, so in that way, we managed to organize more than 20 actions. Every week we are somewhere in the city or in one of the cities, because now we have a group in Nicosia and in Limassol, organizing actions that have from some hundreds of people, which is important. Have in mind, Republic of Cyprus population is almost 1 million. So we are in a very small island. So if we have a couple of hundreds, we are a very good numbers protest. And we go on like this. The goal is to have an organization that can sustain this, that can be there, that can create the tools, as Sonia said, that can educate, remind the people, bring the issue of Palestine in the everyday discussion, whatever happens in Palestine now, even though you know, if the news are not
great. And Athena, يعني, in the real life of activism, people get tired, especially from the core team. Have you faced such a challenge, and how you are dealing with it to maintain the sustainability of your work?
Yes, it's true. And it was a very intense 4 months for us. What we tried from the very beginning to do is to organize the responsibilities that have to be done, the things that have to be done, to be as well organized, so that if somebody is tired, finally, there is a rotation. It's a rotation to the social media responsible, it's a rotation to the finance responsible. So we are trying to keep up with by having a system like this. And until now, it's been working. New people join every day that have new energy, that gives also to the first people that join the energy. But we have organized the groups of responsibilities in a way that everybody can do everything, because we don't think that you have to have special skills in order to become an activist or to take responsibility. From the very first moment, we trust the people that they are there and they are genuine. It's a voluntary activity either way. So they want to, they are there to help and they are there to participate.
Thank you, Athena. Liam, you are now leading the Palestine Solidarity Movement in Zimbabwe. What are the measures that your movement is taking to ensure the continuity and activity despite the long period of war in Gaza? How do you maintain the momentum?
Very much, Reem. Well,
Hi, Liam.
firstly confirm if Firstly confirm if I'm audible. Am I audible?
Can you tell us more about how do you maintain the momentum and the activity of your movement, because the war is taking too long? So
Yeah. Firstly, I'd say that the question of the longevity or time taken to logically conclude the war in Gaza or Palestine in general has not been an issue to the majority of the people in the Palestine Solidarity Movement, especially here in Zimbabwe. As someone who has a students' union background that has a dialectical connection to the labor movement in Zimbabwe, I grew up being socialized into the issue of Palestine since the beginning of my high school days up to my conclusion of university. And since I've never seen people tire, but what I've actually seen is more and more people joining. And this is through activities, thanks to Zimbabwean civil society, particularly ActionAid Zimbabwe in general, that have kept the conversations around Palestine alive. And mostly civil society through its orientation, dissemination of information, documentaries, leaflets, pamphlets, and even stickers like this one, the one on my laptop. Tell me if it's clear, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, from
Yes.
ActionAid, from the global platform in Zimbabwe, actually. The ones that they mainly keep young people interested because the majority of people in the Palestine Solidarity movement here in Zimbabwe are people between the ages of 18 and 35. And then, yes, there is the International Socialist Organization itself that has also been instrumental in keeping the conversations around nations, global South nations in conflict around. So all those things help to feed into the momentum. Then the October 7th activities were more of like a rekindling of the spark, and the reactions from the United States of America themselves, coming from a country which has been under historical, global hostility from the United States itself, and feeling led down by the United Nations because of the several institutional contradictions that befall it. Zimbabweans, especially those that identify with leftist politics, started to reorganize themselves, and they did a march to the American embassy. There was a march again to the Israeli consulate in Zimbabwe. There was a march to a lot of Western embassies and Western-owned Western lateral
We are
action
losing you, Liam.
done in creative idea of flag media coverage. Oh, okay. Tell me where you had lost me.
Liam, sorry, I just want to ask you in 1 minute if you can give us an idea about the structure, the teams you have, how you are structuring the movement.
Okay, so the movement usually mainly borrows inspiration from the solidarity movement in Zambia, which I am in the interim convener, along with guys like now in Thompson and many others. So we borrowed the structure, which is very loose and highly devolved. So we have the convener or the convene group, which is a group of 3 people, and then the same here in Zimbabwe, there is a convener. Then there are community organizers based on different constituencies. For example, those from the students' movement, those from the young movement, the traditional societies. They work as civic coordinators mostly to organize communities and to build. We have a WhatsApp, which is also those words from outside that don't necessarily want to directly associate with the movement, but always give
Okay.
for example, ActionAid Zimbabwe through the global platform, and then the Zimbabwe National Union itself. So it's a very loosely structured system.
Thank you, Liam.
Anytime.
Thank you very much. So it seems from what I have heard from the panelists that there has been a journey undertaken by the activists. Some of them gathered individually and led reactionary tactics at the first, and then because of the killings and the human catastrophe continued, having a strategy became important. So the small movements began to form into larger numbers and plan clearer strategic acts. And the most important lesson is that they built a kind of coalition and networks from other rights holders organizations that already exists. Let me go to Layla. Layla, the legal and political response. You are the monitor team manager at the European Legal Support Center, and the level of and the scale of repression was at its peak after October 7. Can you share more about the patterns of repression across countries in Europe?
Yes, and first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It is amazing to hear so many encouraging voices and speaking with so many people that are organizing and mobilizing all around the world. So yeah, at the ELSC, as an organization monitoring incidents of repression of Palestinian rights advocacy in Europe and providing legal support to Palestine advocates, we can say that there is an unprecedented wave of anti-Palestinian racism, as we have never been so overwhelmed by requests for legal support and reports of incidents coming to us.
Okay.
But still, as depressing as this might sound, it is also a source of hope, because as the mobilization increases, so does the repression. They go hand in hand. And of course, the repression of the Palestine Solidarity Movement or expressions in support of Palestine since October 7th follows the colonial pattern of denying the past and present of the colonized. And that denial is aimed at the destruction, distortion, and disfigurement of their identity and experience. So what we're seeing in Europe today, the kind of repression we are seeing, is its manifestation of its decades-long attempt to connect the Palestinian identity to terrorism and anti-Semitism. It is nothing new. It is something that activists and Palestinians in general have been dealing with since 1948. But the current racist arguments used to justify the repression is actually not surprising, considering the rise of far-right parties in Europe, which have consistently dehumanized migrants, refugees, and Muslims in European foreign and internal politics. Of course, Europe and the West tries to preach itself as a preacher of equality and freedom and democracy. And it has learned to protect its progressive reputation while suppressing those who fight for an equal human rights process at the same time, through more invisible ways. So something that I always mention is that how Europe or the West deals with dissidents is not how they used to do it in the past. So they're not murdered or put into prison, but it is more invisible. There's several mechanisms of silencing that exist, which Jasper Puar calls the right to maim, meaning the right to permanently damage or disable a people's physical, psychological, and organizational strength. So, for example, Israel does the same by actually maiming and disabling more Palestinians than it kills. I mean, until October. Now it is both at the same time. And Europe also tries to damage more civil societies than it actually shuts down. But it is quite interesting to see that right now it is becoming more visible how Europe is shutting down civil society organizations since October 7th. And also Israel is not by any means hiding the genocide that they're inflicting on the Palestinian people. So the LSE's monitor team has recorded over 700 incidents of repression in the past couple of years. But since October 7th, we have recorded an additional 600 incidents of repression. With incidents of repression, I refer to cases in which Palestinian human rights advocacy is repressed by authorities, institutions, individuals, or groups involving allegations of anti-Semitism, support for terrorism, connections to other groups, organizations. So either they try to connect someone to Hamas, but also BDS and Samidun and all the other kinds of groups that exist. Breach of law or policy, such as the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, in which 7 out of the 10 pillars refer to Israel, or the legitimization of Israel, which, for example, in Germany is treated as a crime as well. And the repression occurs under different circumstances and jurisdictions, but similar patterns of repressive methods exist. So what I mean with these mechanisms of silencing is that they span from threats of legal actions, such as criminal charges, and smear campaigns, to cancellations of events, attempts at defunding, loss of employment, and threats to citizenship or residency status, as well as threats to academic freedom, and many other mechanisms that all those involved are familiar with. But when we speak of them towards our institutions as you know, an historical and transnational patterns of censorship that we are facing, they're often dismissed as isolated cases. Yet we all know that these things are systematic and that the racism is institutionalized across all European countries.
Yeah. Thank you, Layla. We will have the chance to talk more about the ways to counter these repressions in the end of the session, hopefully. So we'll talk more about it. But let's hear from Nawa. So Nawa, if possible, could you add from your expertise as a lawyer about the types of legal and political pressures used in manipulating and distract activists?
Okay, so it's not just legal and political as well, but it's also economic repression that is used as well. So there are times when they take away your access to economic power, but it's not always the case in most instances. So what we've also seen with the pushback when it comes to the Palestine solidarity is that the Israeli government has now started offering employment to young people in African states, particularly in Malawi and Zambia, where they're offering scholarships as well as internships and working opportunities for them to go and work in the farms in Israel. So the condition is that you don't have to have involved yourself in any activities that have to talk about ceasefire or anything of that nature. So they even do a background check your social media to see if you are involved in those activities. And then those that are not involved are actually shortlisted deliberately and then stopped from going in the last minute. So because of that, a lot of young people that are looking for employment have begun boycotting, if I should say, in some of these actions. So these are some of the ways that they're engaging in this, but also there's also a lot of issues around when you decide that you want to issue a statement against a boycott of a particular product, they engage and say that this product is not from Israel, and then if you go ahead, we're going to sue you. And because most of the actions that we're doing, especially around Palestinian solidarity, are not backed by any sort of resources because they're mostly grassroots based, people are then scared to take to the streets or to call for boycotts or to shut down spaces because they're afraid that they don't have resources to hire lawyers against these big corporations that issue these particular types of threat. But in terms of here in Zambia, I think in terms of repression, mostly it's been from government as well, because they want to maintain relationships with Israel. They don't want to create any situation that will then stop them from having these relationships with Israel. So they stop you from engaging in any activities. In fact, they threaten you with arrests. They threaten to take you to court. In some instances, they would even actually go and threaten to end your employment or your organization, to deregister your organization, and so on and so forth. And also media houses in Zambia, after some of the protest actions that we took, have actually been told to I could use the term blacklist anything that has to do with Palestine. So even if you take to the streets, you organize in your numbers, you can only use alternative media. No formal media is able to cover you because they've been stopped from covering any of these events. And then most of them are being threatened with tax. They're told that you don't pay tax if you cover these events. We might stop you from doing this. But also, I think it's what has happened is that the fear also from our government, for example, is because there has never been such a time when people have been able to mobilize in so much numbers, and the issue is not very controversial. So they can't fight it openly. If they fight it openly, people will be surprised as to why they are fighting. What's the concern of government in fighting people that are mobilizing against a war? So they know that eventually some of these actions of mobilizing will turn into some of the issues that we're facing locally. So they are trying to stop it before we start pointing the finger at them. So we are pointing the finger at Israel now, but then eventually the finger is going to change and say, what are you doing about it? So before it gets to that point, they are blocking us out of media. They are issuing all these threats to stop us from doing any of these actions. Political parties are stopped from talking about this. I think the only political party that's talking about this is the leftist Socialist Party. But even it is not covered by the media. Immediately it mentions anything that has to do with Palestine. And so all these forms of repression that they are bringing in, but the idea is to just continue pushing back as well, and use alternative sources of media to spread the message, use social media to spread the message. Yes.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Noah and Layla. This rich conversation with you, it made me realize that as we participate in global movements to fight for Palestine and to confront the attempts to silence us, our continued mobilization and tactics not only strengthen us for the cause of Palestine, but are also crucial to uphold the right to democracy and expression. It stops our governments from silencing us. So imagine if the initial reaction of the movements when protests were banned was one of fear or retreat. That would have been a moment where we would have allowed our governments to force us back to dark, undemocratic eras. So thank you. Thanks for all the movement who are keeping the fight and the struggle. We will now focus on smart tactics and learning from them. Fiona, welcome back to the discussion. What are the most tactics that led to success in boycotting Israel? And what can we learn from them?
Thank you for the question. So I think that for the BDS movement, the theory of change is that we need to build sufficient people power to make policymakers change policies, and international law and universal human rights are necessary but insufficient tools. And so human agency and people power are what is always needed to use those tools to affect policy change. And so the BDS movement is working very much into very strategic campaigns. It's not just one-shot actions. It's really having a complete strategies. As I said and shared in the chats, we have a guide tool with concrete criteria to choose the targets for campaigns, and then based on that we really build a plan of like the objective, the medium terms objectives, the messagings, different actors we want to work with, and then we have a timeline with the different actions and the different type of action, because the idea is to work with trade unions and the trade unions inside of companies or institutions, if there is. The idea is to work with intersectional groups, climate justice, feminists, LGBTQI plus groups, migrants groups, to strengthen the message and the links. It's also about doing advocacy, because if you want to change policymakers' opinion and have different legislation, if you want to have sanction being applied, you also need to convince, you also need to pressure the member of parliament, those in power right now. And so all of this makes that there is a range of different tactics that need to be used. And so you have tactics from the streets, grassroots groups doing actions, from the very normal, like giving flyers to disruptive action, sorry. It's about like all the work inside of the companies. I'm focusing on boycotts in that sense, like economic boycott, but you have all the work inside of companies with trade unions. And so, for example, taking an example today, there is the trade unions inside of AXA, which is a French insurer company involved in, financing Israeli banks that are involved in the settlements illegal enterprise. And so the trade unions is asking a question to the direction in order to have the information that we can use later in our communication to escalate the pressure on the companies that care a lot about its image and reputation. And then there is all the work to ensure that due diligence policies are voted in Parliament, to ensure that that human rights policies are not just policies but have also procedures. So it's different kind of tactics that can be used, and that's the same in any type of boycott. You can have academic boycotts where you have the work of students that is so important, but also academics, professors. You need media to be there and to support. Same for sports, same for cultural boycotts, where you need the artists, where you need the different actors, part of basically this whole society related to the targets that you have. And so yeah, I think the most important is really to build campaigns, to have a clear targets, to stay principled and ethical always, to be very careful about how to build the messaging of the campaigns, to know very well your context. Context sensitivity is so important. Message and work and campaigns in the US will be different than in Chile, in Japan, or in Norway, or in South Africa, or Senegal, or Iraq. So it's always important to adapt that for us. And yeah, having always like build a movement, really, like build the grassroots, expand the connection. It's really important to grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I'm like talking about tactics, but at the same time strategies, but it's always connected.
Yeah, it's connected. Especially, يعني, you said very important thing about we should not have like one tactic for a strategic goal. It's like multiple tactics, each tactic built upon the next, and not all of them should be protests. Yani, to think out of the box how we can pressure the government, the politicians, and etc. So yeah, it's very important.
I think also, if I can add, I think it's like we have so many different tactics, and it's important to know when to use which tactics.
Which one?
And that's why it's really important to talk. I mean, in this moment of emergency, it's also important to take the time to reflect and to think when to use which tactics in order to not alienate the public and build the movement and get more support to the ultimate goal. That is the urgent demands of the Palestinian people right now: ceasefire, lifting the siege, humanitarian aid, unconditional humanitarian aid, oppose forced displacement, but also like the long term, which is freedom, justice, and equality.
Thank you, Fiona. Sonia, Jewish Voice for Peace has so many powerful tactics, from Congress sit-ins to large demonstrations, but I'm eager to know if you have tactics that build the organizers' strength and power to continue the struggle and not to lose hope.
Thank you. I think there's, I think every organization, every organization that works on this issue, every group, we all know that this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And this is a moment where we all have to be doing everything that we can, because we are Palestinians are facing genocide. But, we also know that in reality, for the struggle for Palestinian freedom, that begins the day after the ceasefire is called. And so we know that the work will only continue and only get harder in many ways while we deconstruct Israeli apartheid. So one of the things that we do, what we try to do a lot of is the political education for all of our people, so that the logic behind the tactics and the strategy is really clear. And we don't have to ask the people take incredible risks and not know why. And some of that means making sure that if somebody is risking arrest or, and somehow risking any sort of physical danger, climbing a wall to drop a banner or whatever, that we do our best to make sure that there's media coverage of that, and that when the media covers it, we make sure that they tell the story the way we want them to tell it. And I saw in the chat earlier, we have a document on like how to do press for media, how to do press for an action. And part of that is really making sure that the result of your action is told as clearly as possible all of the time. So that means that after you've been arrested 6 times, even if the US government hasn't called for a ceasefire yet, at least you know that the story has been told and you've been shifting the narrative and you've been gaining popular support. At the more immediate level, though, it's also very much about making sure that everything that someone is doing is they're also teaching. And so the people who have the logistical skill set to figure out how to sneak 400 people into a train station don't just do that over and over again, but they bring new people on and they train them up. That's both for their own sustainability and for the movement. We held media trainings constantly where we practice how to answer tricky questions and what are our talking points. We gathered, we asked our people to take 3 days off, and we gathered 300 people together and did in-person trainings in early January to really sort of like bulk up the leaders of our individual chapters and pods. So it's trying to hold the urgency of the moment to just do everything with the reality that this is a longer struggle, and allowing yourself to take a step back every once in a while to invest and skill up to then go out and hit the ground again.
Great. And can you share one of the most powerful tactics that we can learn from?
I think the taking over of the Grand Central Station in New York City certainly got global attention. And part of that organizing was done intentionally through the spoke model, which is like a bicycle with spokes. So everybody organizes a cohort of 15 or 20 people that they are responsible for, and one person from that group reports back to the center. So only a small group of people actually knew where the plan was. Everybody else just knew, oh, it's New York City, it's Midtown, and be there at 4 p.m. But only a small group of people knew exactly where. And so they were responsible for telling their people when they got the go to rush in. And before that, we had scoped out where all of the various entrances were to, because there's a 42, I think, or something like that, 48 entrances into this particular train station. But they had also been doing the relational work, not just among the Jewish group, Jewish Voice for Peace members in New York, but within the whole Palestine solidarity movement there. And so there were all of these folks that were coming in who were not members of JVP, but were already active, and they could bring their people. And they had been doing the historical connection with our movement elders, right? Because all of this movement for social justice, for Palestine freedom, is built on earlier movements. And so this action was intentionally modeling a famous action by ACT UP, which was the queer rights group that was fighting against the US government's refusal to acknowledge and invest in AIDS research. So we were pulling on and standing on the shoulders of incredibly great, brilliant actions already to then replicate out. And then we already had our social media captions written in advance. We knew the photos we wanted to take. We had certain journalists that came in with us, and we snuck them in from different angles. And then for everybody who couldn't make it in, we said, stand outside, draw attention. And so there were, I think, 400 or 500 people inside, maybe 1,000, but then 5,000, 10,000 outside massing support. And so that just drives the attention. And that's when you get the helicopters, and you make you make the nightly news.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia, for that. I encourage everyone to share the tactics demanding ceasefire you've organized or participated in, so that we can learn from each other. Haneen, I saw so many videos for you. You were singing and drumming in front of people. And I want you to share with us some of the creative tactics that you follow in Japan.
Absolutely. I just want to mention briefly before I talk about the tactics, one thing that really keeps me going personally is knowing that after 5 months, people in Gaza are still, trying to find hope and faith and trying to keep pushing through. So if they're able to do that, we should be able to go out and protest and boycott and do everything we need to do, as we are in a place of privilege and we need to use that privilege, no matter how tired we may be. We just need to keep thinking about them, because this is really about them. That's just a small note. But in terms of but in terms of the tactics, again, in Japan, it's quite unique. And we really wanted to drive like engagement. So we did, the normal standing protests. We did some marches here and there, but we noticed kind of a stall over the holidays. Not many people are actually paying attention to the protests while they're walking by. They just hear people, chanting. They're not really paying attention. So we decided to kind of step it up and incorporate more of like sound. So we had we called it Sound Up for Palestine, where everybody brought, an instrument of some sort to kind of, engage more people. And people actually started paying more attention to the protests because, there was other aspects besides us, just standing there and chanting. So it caught more attention, as well as we started something called Tears for Palestine, which is an event to remember and to honor all the martyrs. Because as much as, the focus is on a ceasefire and liberation and justice, we all, we have people who are being murdered and are passing away because of this genocide, and we need to remember them. They're not numbers, as we keep saying. So we held Tears for Palestine, where you drew a red tear for every name. And so we would read out the name of every martyr. We've done this 3 times in Tokyo, across all the cities, across many cities in Japan. We were connected with people and we got them to also hold it. And then also across different countries. So we had Jewish Voice for Peace also do it in Hawaii. We also had people do it in front of the White House in DC. So it really spread worldwide, which was interesting to see. And it was nice because it was really about remembering and honoring the martyrs. But another thing that, we really, really focused on was, alongside BDS Japan, is trying to find a strategy to target specific companies, because, there's so many corporations that are complicit, but it's really important to be targeted, to be goal-oriented, and to have a very clear reason for boycotting them and targeting them. And in our case, we focused on, military and defense technology companies, because, they are directly aiding, Israel's military and the genocide. So one of the biggest companies was Itochu, and it's a major trading company in Japan, where a lot of students as well, they want to work there so badly. So it's like a very popular company. And so we decided that it's really important to raise awareness about these businesses that they're doing, these trades that they're doing with Israel. And a mainstream Japanese news outlet, Mainichi Shimbun, reported that Itochu decided to do a memorandum of understanding, an MOU with Elbit Systems in March 2023. And we have amazing, fantastic guys, Sugihara-san from Najat, which is the Network Against Japan Arms Trade. He found this article and started a campaign against it. And then after October 7th, people started to realize, okay, we really need to do something about this company, alongside with all the, shut Elbit down actions worldwide. So we started a petition, the Japanese students and youth for Palestine, they're called OMO Palestine. They started a petition to raise awareness about this issue and about Itochu. And we just held protests in front of their offices every week in Tokyo and across Japan, and even in Canada as well. We had people protesting there. And in our petition, we told them, we are going to start a boycott campaign if you don't comply with our terms. And we had a very set goal, which is divest. You don't need this memorandum with Elbit Systems. And we delivered the petition with over 25,000 signatures, and alongside BDS Japan. And they didn't respond. They didn't give us the answers. So we started boycotting. We started a boycott campaign against them while also simultaneously protesting outside of their offices. And, not even a week went by where we weren't there, disturbing their peace. And, after some time, also alongside, mailstorm actions where we would send comments and emails and fax to tell them that, we're not okay with this. They finally caved in and they cut ties with Elbit Systems. They cited the ICJ hearing, of course, but I'm pretty sure, I'm 100% sure
It's
us
played
standing
a role.
outside their office every week made them kind of feel the pressure. And, in Japan, they don't want to be known to have a business that's, not sustainable or not human, let's say. And they have a lot of clauses for that as well. So we told them, you even have clauses about doing, business that's positive and that's, good for humanity, nothing evil. And that really triggered them and I think got them to cave in. And once we got that was a really, it's a small win in the grand scheme of things, but it was a big win for us and kind of gave us that motivation as well to keep going. And then we targeted Nippon Aircraft Supply, and they caved in as well. I mean, they're tied to it, so we kind of expected it, and now we're kind of gonna apply a similar strategy with other companies. So it's really about being focused and making sure you get some action out of them.
You should have a strategic goal beside of ceasefire, like to target something. Congratulations, Haneen, for you and all the activists with you. I want to share that 2 weeks ago with some friends in Jordan, we gathered news and images from the powerful tactics from around the globe, and we shared them with the people we know in Gaza to let them know and see how people, not their governments, and they find their way to reject and to fight and to demand ceasefire all the way long. I'll end the panel with Layla. Layla, in 5 minutes, if you can, as you mentioned, as this amazing global solidarity emerged, so too has the extraordinary repression. So what have you seen in regards of mobilization to counter repression? Also, if you can share any legal resources for people navigating this repression.
Yes, so at the ELSC, we are movement lawyers, which means that we use the law in a pragmatic way. So we are aware of its critical aspects, which makes law usually exploitative. We also acknowledge that law is used as a tool of oppression, but we still see that we can use the law as a tool of resistance that can mobilize people. So, for example, it is actually exactly because of the success of the Palestine Solidarity Movement in countering unfounded allegations of anti-Semitism and terrorism that Europe has passed resolutions and policies, such as the IHRA definition that I mentioned before, or anti-BDS motions to justify the repression of Palestinian rights advocacy as a breach of law or policy. Yet this repression is unconstitutional in most countries and a direct violation of fundamental freedoms, which rarely has any legal grounds when brought in front of a court, which is what we try to do and encourage people to do. But of course, despite all the chilling effect that these laws and policies bring, and that also the mechanisms of silencing deter people from engaging with Palestine solidarity, as Fiona said, more people are organizing and mobilizing around the world. So, for example, right now, we might be disappointed by the ICJ's provisional measures because, of course, it is lamentable that they didn't call for a ceasefire. However, we still have a powerful tool that we got from the court ruling because the plausibility of a genocide and the expected Israeli failure of implementing any of the provisional measures, gives us a powerful tool in bringing those responsible or complicit to national highest courts. The generality of the court judgment allows lawyers to use the law creatively in domestic courts. And after South Africa's submission to the ICJ, suddenly genocidal intent and statements made it into the mainstream narrative. And suddenly there's a change in the media landscape and the narrative. So, but the BDS tools, for example, now also have the backing of the highest international court. However, despite us being a legal organization, it is important to know that it is not through legal means that this repression will be challenged alone. As Reem mentioned, for example, in Germany, demonstrations were banned until the ban had to be lifted because hundreds of people went on the streets anyway. Similarly, when the Berlin Senate for Education, Youth and Families sent a letter to Berlin schools, to like the Berlin schools authorities and supervisors, asking them to ban the kufiyas, school students, very young, organized themselves to wear the kufiyas to school every day. Similarly, students at higher institutions no longer fall for the traps that universities set for them by overconditioning and securitizing their events or calling them into meetings with the administration to distract them from pressuring against their institution's complicity. And instead, they are now organizing teach-ins and occupying their campuses to pressure the universities more than just talking about it in closed meetings. So the lessons to be drawn from these cases of successful pushback is that we cannot be intimidated. There's strength in numbers and power in mobilization. The law is on our side as much as, as Palestinians, we don't really believe in it. We can still use it. And we cannot allow ourselves to be silenced, and we have to train ourselves towards solidarity and not charity. So we have to remember that we're no one's savior and that we are organizing and speaking out for Palestine because the liberation of Palestine is bound to our own liberation and more than anything to our Western and non-Western societies' common decency in supporting that liberation. So if you're in Europe, just know you're not alone. And there's also similar organizations elsewhere, such as Palestine Legal in the US, which you can go to when you're facing repression. And if anyone who's listening is a lawyer, please connect with us. Our legal networks have been doing amazing work and not just defending the damage that is caused by attacks against activists, but also actually helping in offensive cases to hold those that are doing the repression accountable. And that is actually a move that we should get used to, which is being offensive instead of defensive when we are dealing with attacks. Thank you, Layla. This is so much appreciated and helpful. We reached the end of the panel. We have 10 minutes maybe, or 12 minutes to answer some questions. So let me just see. So there's a question from Jumana Abdelaziz. Maybe Liam, you can answer it. And if any of the panelists would like to answer it, just raise a hand. So Jumana is asking, I would like to hear how the panelists see the intersectionality of Palestinian cause and this fight for justice with other causes at their more local level or even at the global level.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, the Palestinian cause with local causes is the legacy of colonialism within the issue, that it's a product of the global South suffering from the hands of empire, right? If it wasn't for the West's meddling in, especially the USA and the British governments at that time, meddling into issues of creating two-party state solutions without substantive dispute resolution mechanisms to ensure peace within the Arab region as well as in the global South, that couldn't have happened. Then also, there is an individual named Dan Gatla, an Israeli diamond dealer who runs several ventures within South Central Africa, who also happens to be one of the financiers of the building of Israeli occupational structures within Gaza. So all that speaks to how the structural and economic intrinsic involvement of Western capital and the legacy of colonialism, as I said, how it speaks to the global South, that brings us all to organize and keep fighting, because once Palestine is free, once Oromia is free, once Congo is free, it means that Zimbabwe, Ghana, and all other countries will be free.
Thank you, Liam. Fiona, you have something to add on this?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add that at some point we know very well that apartheid Israel is also, it's testing its oppressive techniques on the Palestinian society and bodies for decades, and then the exporting and selling to the world these tactics and materials. And so these same tactics and the same tools and the same materials and weapons are then used by authoritarian regime against their own people, against indigenous people. And so you can see that tactics of or tools from Elbit system are used to build the wall between US and Mexico. You can see that the tactics to target demonstrator in Chile when they were like targeting the mass mobilization against the neoliberal government a couple of years ago. They were shooting at the eyes of the demonstrators, which is the same tactics that was used by the Israeli occupation forces targeting the Palestinian in Gaza that were calling for the right to return and doing the March of Return in Gaza a couple of years ago as well. Frontex in Europe is using also Elbit system to control the migrants coming to Europe. In India, the same bulldozer are destroying Muslim houses and the Muslim minorities. So you can also see in Africa that Israel is using all the knowledge related to the oppression of water resources and agricultural resources in occupied Palestinian territory, and how they basically use the same tactics to make deals with some authoritarian regime to change the way the population are actually doing agriculture, to privatize water. You can see that in Africa, you can see that in Latin America. So all of this is also like connecting the dots. It's also connecting these different social movements and social justice movement together. And it's like Laila said, it's about like a liberation struggle in general. It's liberation for freedom for all, and it's ensuring that the system we are living in is also changing. It's decolonizing. It will not decolonize itself. It needs people power for that. And so yeah, that's how we need intersectionality among the different struggle around Palestine, but around so many different struggle.
Thank you, Fiona. We have another question. It says, although it's a tragic moment, there is finally the focus on Palestine that has been needed for so long. How can we leverage this moment? What key strategic things should we put priorities, emphasize on right now? Sonia, can I ask you to answer this?
I was just looking to raise my hand. Thank you. I think it's a great question, because there's a couple different I think there's a couple different areas that are really worth investing in. The first is with all of the attention and renewed attention on Palestine, there are a lot of people who still need sort of basic information, basic content, 101, if you will, and to really invest in making sure that people who are new to the issue and feel the injustice and don't know enough have easy ways to learn Palestinian history, learn the history of colonization and the continued injustices. If they're in the United States, they should also learn, of course, the history of the United States government in enabling all of that. And this is something that's really hard to do right now, but then try to connect all of that to the longer term goal, right? The goal of freedom, the goal of liberation for Palestinians, justice, equality. Anger and fury and rage is what gets people excited about something. And we have every reason to feel all of those things, but it doesn't allow you to stay in the movement. And we'll lose all of these new people that have come in unless we can offer them a long-term goal and a long-term understanding of what else they're building for. And of course, that goes into collective liberation. And so none of us are free until Palestine is free, et cetera. So I think all of that is really, really key to try to hold as we welcome in new people and build the movement so that we don't just end up back here 5 years, 10 years from now again. I would say also, if you are in the United States or, really anywhere, I think focusing on the governments is really important. They're not listening, not nearly enough, but they hold the key still. And at least our understanding from our Palestinian allies is that we have to get a ceasefire first and foremost, and then continue the work for justice. And so a ceasefire will only come when there is massive international outcry at a level that we're not seeing from the decision makers. And so we're, wherever Biden goes, you should be. Wherever your people from members of Congress are, you should be there. Wherever the key military providers, builders of weapons, et cetera, like all of the various ways that we can emphasize power. Part of what we're doing now is launching a campaign on Israel bonds so that we can actually try to get states and unions to massively divest following BDS strategy, and then really actually show the Israeli government the extent to which the world doesn't think it's a good investment. And so, following the historic model of South Africa and the way that apartheid was challenged. So to really use this moment to educate and then to bring them in and sustain them, and then also have really, really key targets that you're going after.
Great. Sonia, we'll start with you. Maybe others can share also. Can you share with us books and links that we can read about history, about Palestine, Israel, the conflict? 101, maybe. If you can.
Give me a second, and I will
chat.
drop a link in the chat. We actually
course.
have a list. It'll be better that way.
Yeah. So we have this question. If we have any studying history and creating space where people can read books, listen. Yeah. Anyone from the panelists want to have the last minute to conclude this session? Do you have last thing to say, maybe just for 30 seconds or 1 minute? Nawa?
Yes. So I just wanted to say that emphasize the point that the current mobilization that's going on around ceasefire is just that, it's mobilization. We need to start organizing. We need to start ensuring that the numbers that we have mobilized are actually organized and they form part of the structure so that there's sustainability and also there's renewed energy, because mobilizing in huge numbers is good. It's very good, but it doesn't last long. At some point, people get tired. At some point, people wear out. So we need to start organizing, and organizing is focused on political education, getting people to do much more sustained and long-term activities, but also people understanding that there's a bigger fight of social justice that's there outside the ceasefire. And we basically just need to organize and organize and organize beyond the mobilization that we're doing.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the panelists. In conclusion, I remain hopeful. And I remind myself and others that Vietnam freed itself from American war, and South Africa achieved liberation from apartheid, even if it took so long, but we are in this path. And as long as we continue to strengthen the global movement for Palestine liberation, without doubt, Palestine will be free. I would like sincerely to thank ActionAid Denmark for this panel, and assure the speakers that your efforts have an impact, even if it may not be immediately tangible now. It is profound. Ultimately, history favors those who persist longer, and we will stand by until free Palestine achieved, hopefully. I'll pass it on to you, Soren, for closing remarks.
Whoa, thank you so much, Reem, for steering us through these important discussions and learnings. It's been quite mind-blowing for me. It's been really, really interesting, and thank you so much, Liam. Athena, you've jumped off already. That's okay. Fiona, Nawa, Sonia, and Haneen for sharing your thoughts and your strategies and activism, and not least fire with us. I think it's been really, really, truly inspirational. And I think I speak on behalf of all of us when I say that the past 2 hours have given us new ideas and reflections of our activism and our collective push for the ceasefire and end to the immense suffering in Gaza, and not least for a free Palestine. I think you've underlined the importance of so many elements to the struggle, the strategic consideration, absorption, creativity, and not least persistence and hope and care for the cause going forward. So on behalf of the Global Social Movement Center, MOVE, all its partners, I just thank you all for participating. And so please revisit all the resources that has been, put in the chat already. There's so many different links. There's so many different connections. I think this is just, it's just a part of our collective, strategy to share those resources with each other, to have these conversations with each other. So please do reach out, continue the conversation, share the links with each other. And revisit these different things. And there's been a lot of things from the our collective toolbox, Beautiful Trouble, but also many others. And please do stay in touch and stay tuned for future opportunities like this one. There will also be links in the chats. Visit our websites, our Eventbrite page. And I think there's maybe only one thing left to say is ceasefire now, end the occupation, and free Palestine. So in solidarity, thank you so much, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.